Welcome everybody to another episode of Fins Nation. I'm your host Louis Sung, and today we're going to be talking about something very interesting that recently came out. Mike McDaniel was at the owners meeting and he had a one-on-one sit down with Mike Silver. And in this interview, we got an opportunity to see what makes Mike McDaniel tick. His insights on Tua, the wide receiver position, the offensive line, which I know will be a real topic of discussion considering the things that he had to say, because it really gives some real insight into the thought process behind what the Miami Dolphins are doing this offseason and the previous offseason. So we're going to get into all that, but before we do that, I just want to go ahead and mention that this show is brought to you by our lead sponsor, You Break Wheel Fix. You Break Wheel Fix is a wheel repair and remanufacturing company with over 20 years of experience. They specialize in complete wheel repair, repairing wheels from curb rash, bends, and cracks, and they also specialize in refinishing, polishing, machining, and custom colors that will suit your car's needs. Lastly, You Break Wheel Fix offers a full array of factory and custom wheel and tire applications, so you contact them at 305-748-0112 or at You Break Wheel Fix on all social media platforms, and you can get your wheels upgraded today. Just go ahead and ask my friend Manny, who got his car rigged with some real Miami Dolphins colors, so now he can show his Dolphins fandom everywhere he goes. You can do. Just go ahead and go to You Break Wheel Fix on any social media platform, or you can give them a call at 305-748-0112. And this show is also brought to you by PrizePicks.com. PrizePicks.com is the revolutionary fantasy platform where you can now pick up to 6 different players across professional sports leagues, whether that's the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, the NHL, one of each. It's up to you to decide. All you have to do is choose the over or the under on those individual players' fantasy projections, whether that's individual stats or the classic fantasy point projections. They will give you free squares, special Taco Tuesday promos, Flex Friday specials, and you can get your money back with that Flex Friday special if you lose, or you can even multiply the amount of money you can normally win. With offers like that, it's hard to justify not signing up for Prize Picks at this point. So use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. Again, that's promo code 5, FIVE. Go to PrizePicks.com, deposit your $100, and get $100 on their dime to use to play with. Go to PrizePicks.com and get started today. So now let's get into some of the details of this interview. And really, after listening to it, it's really a fascinating look into how Mike McDaniel's brain works. Because all this time we've been talking about him like he's an offensive genius. He knows so much about football. He's so intelligent. He's so witty. He's so unique as a head coach. And all of that is true. But to really be able to get a deep dive into what kind of thoughts go through his mind when he sees something, that is something that we cannot take for granted, because it really gives us some insight into how this team is constructed, what the philosophy is, and of course, how he feels about Tua Tagovailoa. Because obviously Mike Silver was not going to just let the whole Tua thing slide. Obviously, he brought up how everybody seemed to have checked out on Tua. Tua was not the answer in Miami. Obviously, the Deshaun Watson rumors kind of led a lot to that, and ever since then everybody's just been saying that Tua is definitely not the guy, because the Dolphins were so desperate to replace him with a different quarterback who had already established himself, and we all know what ultimately happened when he went to the Cleveland Browns. So, end of that story. But the story with Tua did not end. It continued. It continued into the Tom Brady rumors. It continued into the Phillip Rivers rumors that recently cropped up that we just now learned about. It continued to the Aaron Rodgers rumors. Basically, the Lamar Jackson rumors. Every single quarterback that was available was rumored to join the Miami Dolphins to replace Tua Tagovailoa. And we have continued to have these narratives spun by other people who are not convinced that Tua is the guy, that obviously if the Miami Dolphins want to find any success, they need to give up the farm to get Lamar Jackson, which, by the way, every other team in the NFL is also not interested in meeting his price demands. So don't just put it on Miami, put it on the other 31 NFL teams as well. But some of the things that Mike McDaniel said during this interview really resonated, not just with me on a level that was very interesting just with football, but also on a personal level. I have said in the past that in many ways I feel like I can relate to Tua. Like him, I am somebody who is his own worst enemy in a way. Nobody is harsher on Tua than Tua himself. And that's saying something, because with the way that the media treats him sometimes, the way that people look at him, the way that people act like he's just no good, that he's this fragile human being who will break if you so much as even look at him the wrong way, all of these things are thoughts and suggestions that ultimately just slow you down as a human being. Now, does that make you fragile? I don't know. I just feel like it kind of makes you human. I've often made the analogy because as a Star Trek fan, I like to reel back when I say things like, I'm not a Vulcan, I can't turn my emotions on and off. If you've heard it multiple times over and over and over again, eventually it's going to get to you. I don't care who you are. I don't care how strong you are. I don't care how detached you are from the rest of the world at large. You don't even have to be on social media. I guarantee you that you will have heard something that you didn't necessarily need to hear. And when it keeps coming up over and over again, it's either going to drive you to become better or eventually it will break you. And that doesn't necessarily, they're not mutually exclusive all the time. Sometimes it'll drive you to get better, but if nobody gives you any credit for all the work you're putting in, eventually you're going to feel like, what is even the point? Like, what am I bothering for? It doesn't seem like anybody appreciates any of the work that I'm putting into all this. And admittedly, I have felt that way. And that's why I resonated with Tua so much. Is that really how Tua felt about things? I can't say that for sure. I don't know what was going on in his mind. But just based on how everything was going around when Brian Flores was around, how everybody was talking, everybody was treating the whole situation, the fact that they refused to verbally commit to Tua in any meaningful way, that has to hurt. It just has to. And if it had been me, I might have said, listen, get me out of here and get me to a team that will actually appreciate the work I put in, because it doesn't seem like they want me here. And the wildest thing of all is that Mike McDaniel also resonates with him for the same reasons. McDaniel talked about how he felt like he wouldn't have been able to do or even amount to anything if he didn't have his mom building him up, telling him that he could accomplish whatever he put his mind to. Think about that for a second. Mike McDaniel's single mom was basically his only source of support. And that was enough for him to be able to become the man that he is today. He's had his struggles. He's had his demons. He's fighting through them like every single one of us every single day. And he felt like Tua was the same kind of person. He needed somebody in his corner. And at the time, which is true, we can all attest to this. We watched it happen. It felt like Tua had nobody in his corner. And in order to really evaluate someone, in order to truly understand how this person functions, you need to be able to take the time to get to know them and how they work. And Mike McDaniel did that. And it paid off in 2022. Because now that McDaniel was 100% in his corner from day one, he called Tua Tagovailoa while he was on the plane and said, listen, man, you and me are going to go places. We watched the video. We watched the clip over and over again. And many of us were really excited because it's like, finally, we have somebody who actually wants Tua and is letting Tua know that we are going to make you special. And Tua finally was able to pay that off. He felt like he actually could accomplish the things that he was doing. Never underestimate the power of having somebody in your corner telling you, you're the man, you've got this. If you feel like you're alone, everything that you do becomes 10 times harder. There is not a human being on earth that can fully function and be the best that they can be if the whole world is against them. And so after that, McDaniel goes into the story that most of us have probably heard before, how he watched the tape on Tua. He did a whole 6-hour dive into what exactly it is that Tua can do. He saw all the throws that he was making. He saw all the ability that he had to be accurate with the football, to distribute the football. And immediately McDaniel started freaking out because this was the guy that he wanted to build his offense around, because he did exactly what it was that he needed. He needed somebody to get the ball out, to find his open guys and make plays happen that way. He didn't need a quarterback like a Lamar Jackson, who basically was the playmaker, because what did the Ravens have without Lamar Jackson? Practically nothing. Without Lamar Jackson, the Ravens weren't able to go very far. Yeah, Tyler Huntley stepped in for a little while, and for a short period of time, he was a good fill-in, but that quickly faded. They needed Lamar Jackson, and they couldn't have him. Now, in a vacuum, you can say the same thing about Tua. What did the Miami Dolphins have if Tua's not there? But that's just the whole point, isn't it? Is that you need this guy in order to execute the offense that you want to build. And Mike McDaniel found a match made in heaven for the offense that he was wanting to build. He didn't have to reconfigure his offense. He already knew what kind of an offense he wanted to run. It just so happened that fate smiled down upon him and gave him Tua Tagovailoa, which meant that he could run his offense to a T. And this leads into the second point of the whole interview for me. We've been talking about how the Miami Dolphins need to invest in the offensive line. That right tackle still isn't settled. That left guard is a mess right now with Liam Eichenberg or Robert Jones or whoever you want to throw into that pool. And you would think that somebody who has had such an emphasis on the offensive line in the past few years, he would want to invest in that line. And that maybe it was just Chris Greer who was ignoring it for the sake of the ego of Austin Jackson and Liam Eichenberg. But no. It doesn't seem to be that's the case. Something that Mike McDaniel has said during the owners' meetings was that he really feels like that Austin Jackson and Liam Eichenberg's worst days are behind them. He said, and I quote, "If you're talking to an offensive lineman, the biggest growth in his game within the system he's playing is 100% in year 2. So what's the best year 2 Austin or Liam has had in their career so far that people judge them by year 2 of a system? The answer is it didn't happen." And this is very true because, again, ever since Austin Jackson and Liam Eichenberg have gotten to Miami, and this is something that I alluded to in previous shows, and this is why I feel like there may be something there yet. We just don't know if it's the truth or not, if we're maybe playing with fool's gold. Maybe Mike McDaniel's playing with fool's gold. But the fact of the matter is, the Miami Dolphins have had a different offensive line coach for 5 straight years. 5 straight years that they've had a different offensive line coach. And not only that, you want to dig a little bit deeper. During the Brian Flores era, they had a different offensive coordinator every year that he was there. First, it was Chad O'Shea, and that blew up in their face. Then it was Chan Gailey coming out of retirement. That blew up in their face. And then it was the three-headed hydra that was George Godsey, Eric Stoodsville, and Charlie Fry. So again, 3 years in a row, a completely different scheme, and then here comes Mike McDaniel with his scheme, and once again, we're starting over again. Is it possible that Mike McDaniel has a point? You really have to consider this, because again, if in one breath we're talking about how much of a genius Mike McDaniel is, how much of a guru he is for the offense, and then he comes out in a very candid interview with Mike Silver, one-on-one, basically giving his whole mindset. Now, granted, the owners' meeting where he mentioned Austin Jackson, Liam Eichenberg, that wasn't during the Mike Silver thing. That was just an owners' meeting. But nevertheless, these are the things that he was talking about that basically give you cause to realize, oh, Mike McDaniel was the one who wanted guys like Eric Ezukanma. Mike McDaniel was the one who was looking for players who could get yards after the catch. He wasn't looking for offensive line help. He felt like that he could make the offensive line work. And again, I don't like to keep harping on it because nobody really believes me. They just think I'm crazy. For 14 snaps, Austin Jackson looked really good against New England. And I understand that when he came back, there was a lot more snaps of him looking terrible. I get it. I really do. But at the same time, you cannot deny that he has a point. Every single year that they have been here, both Austin Jackson, Tua Tagovailoa, Liam Eichenberg, whoever, it has been a different scheme for at least 5 years on offensive line. And the offense as a whole, at least ever since Brian Flores was here, it's been a different offense. Because Brian Flores didn't run the offense. It was Chad O'Shea, then it was Chan Gailey, and then it was all 3 of the other guys. Now McDaniel comes in. We're going to keep running the same offense, you guys. Yeah, it's a different offensive line coach, but you know what? At least it's the same offense. That's progress, at least. So that's the mindset of Mike McDaniel. There's your revelation into how our head coach functions. He's looking for weapons. He's giving playmakers for Tua to get the ball to so that incredible things can happen. And by the way, I did allude to the fact that the Ravens need Lamar Jackson a lot more because he basically runs their whole offense. Tua does the same, but in a way that is much more balanced. Tua's job is not to be the entire offense. Tua's job is to get the ball to the guys who make the offense go. And that's perfectly okay. A lot of superstar quarterbacks had that job. Once again, we have to go back to this old comparison. Nobody believes it anymore, but it's still true. It took Drew Brees 6 seasons to become a Hall of Fame quarterback, Drew Brees. And he did eventually win a Super Bowl. It just took somebody who believed in him, Sean Payton, to turn the whole thing around and get the most out of his quarterback. The Dolphins didn't believe in Drew Brees. They let him go to New Orleans. And he went to New Orleans and became a Hall of Fame quarterback. If anything, this interview should give you no more room for doubt in your mind. Mike McDaniel, the genius that everybody praises for being an incredible offensive superstar, wants Tua as his quarterback. Raved about Tua to everybody in the building. Worked hard, long and hard, to convince everybody around him in the building that Tua is the answer to all their problems. I think we should start to listen. And as for the offensive line, yes, I want an upgrade over Austin Jackson. Yes, I would love an upgrade to Liam Eichenberg. But there is that small part of me still that wonders, is Mike McDaniel right about these guys? Does he still see potential in them that they're basically standing pat, at least so far, with Liam Eichenberg and Austin Jackson? With the mindset that being in the same scheme for the first time in their entire NFL careers, that maybe they'll finally start to get more comfortable with the whole thing and they won't feel like they're starting from scratch all over again. There may be something to that, and I guess we're going to get the chance to see. If you guys haven't already checked out that interview for yourselves, it's about an hour long, so you'll have to get your popcorn. I'm going to leave the link in the description below, so if you want to listen to that interview for yourself between Mike McDaniel and Mike Silver, you absolutely should, because it gives you a fantastic insight into how Mike McDaniel thinks. It's going to be an incredible listen for you. And maybe, just maybe, if you're somebody who still has doubts about Tua, whether it's his ability, his health, whatever the case may be, maybe listening to Mike McDaniel rave about him for so long will finally turn you into a believer. Anything's possible. We're going to go ahead and call it here. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you haven't already gone and checked it out, make sure you go to You Break Wheel Fix and give them a call for wheel repairs or remanufacturing. If you need to get your wheels fixed, if you need to get your wheels upgraded to some real Dolphins aesthetic, you can go ahead and contact them at 305-748-0112, or just go to any social media platform and look up You Break Wheel Fix to get a hold of them that way. Get your wheels upgraded today. Get your wheels fixed if you need to. They've got your back. You Break Wheel Fix. Give them a call at 305-748-0112. And of course, if you haven't gone to prizepicks.com already and signed up using the promo code 5, make sure you go ahead and do that. They're eventually going to have some more awesome promos going. Right now, they actually have a really nice discounted promo for the MLB season starting up. So make sure, if you haven't taken advantage of that already, go ahead and do so. Use that promo code 5. Go ahead and deposit your $100 when you sign up. They will give you $100 to play with, and go ahead and get started winning today. That's going to be it for this show. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you all next time.